Hello, hello, everyone. We are just getting set up here. Let's get the game into frame, shall we? How is everyone today? I hope you guys are excited about the next chapter of Weyrwood. So, for those of you who have missed anything, we are playing Weyrwood by choice of written and published by choice of games, I should say. It is a choose your own adventure or CYOA for short story that is very Jane Austen like in writing. We are currently the protagonist of the story who is experiencing um, a lot of interesting things. The story so far has been that we, as a person, are Monsieur Montague, and we have returned to our childhood hometown of Prosper, which sits on the edge of civilization next to the wood. We have inherited a property from our guardian who raised us after our parents have died, and we are trying to liquidate said holdings to return back to the city in which we were sent for education as well as to escape Prosper as per our guardian's wishes. Unfortunately, society in Prosper is drastically different than everywhere else because of the influence of the wares of the Weyrwood, as well as the daemons. Some bargain has been made, some magic is in the world, and it is Prosper that is on the edges of all these things. Hey, Trav, hey, Winter Fairy. So, in any case, we have discovered what kind of person we are, that we are landed gentry, but poor landed gentry. We have discovered that our childhood friend Hippolyta still is very fond of us. She has married a lovely, charming man named Francis. Our old rival, Yocasta, still hates us. She is the town gossip and is not very fond of us. We have discovered the Guffords as well, primarily young Miss Gufford, as well as her cousin, Mr. Wren Gufford, the philosopher, who has been, as we have recently found out, experimenting with magic. And we desperately need to speak with his uncle or Miss Gufford's, Miss Danae Gufford's father about our property and how we can speed up the liquidation of it into money rather than property. Um, but he is out of town at the moment, so we cannot discuss it further with him. We have also, at a recent ball, learned of a few other characters. And so I will show our stats to begin this. By relationships, we have seen who was a friend of our guardian, but we have not spoken with him. We did, however, speak with Lady Eugene and have become friendly with her. Mr. Wren Gufford, Miss Danae Gufford, and we have also noticed Alcindor Wakefirth, but we have not spoken with them. We did, however, make them a person, much like ourselves. Hi, Kashwiggle. Nice of you to join us. So yes, we have seen the Weirs and are still neutral with them. We have seen the Daemons and have thought dangerous thoughts about them. And as you can see down here, Ista still hates us, and likely all will. Currency for this game is in Spina or Spina. I will interchange the pronunciation of that word relentlessly. And that is all the wealth that we technically have. It is also an expression of our willpower, how powerful we are, magically speaking, one could say. When it comes to our reputation, we are more respectable than scandalous these days. We have a bit of influence, but are fairly neutral across the board with everything else, though our woodbound and weird sense has risen a bit since we have experienced the wood recently. As for our qualities, we're charismatic, but not quite as intelligent. We are delicate more than we are bold, fairly empathetic. We are more subterfuge than principled. Our health has taken a hit primarily because we have been scratched by a wood-bound cat. We shall see what the after effects of that are in coming days, if any at all. But we are a bit accomplished, however, rather neutral on the sports matter. So that is all that there is to say about us for the moment. With that in mind, we shall begin Chapter 4, Chariot Racing. You pass a restless night caught in dreams of unfurling thorns, piercing your body through. You wake up covered in a sheen of sweat. At breakfast, you can scarcely eat. You stare into your cup, trying to blot out the unwelcome thoughts that dog you. The sky is a bright blue and cloudless limpid today, contrary to your mood. Bruno Ale, you gaze at it dully. He stands a moment too long above the plate and clears his throat. With your permission, Messer, this came for you. I believe it is of a time-sensitive nature. He hands you a small piece of paper and waits. You unfold it, expecting news on your inheritance, but it reads only, Broomhill, at the road, 11. Do not disappoint me, Dominique. H. Do not disappoint me, Dominique. H. What is your reaction? Clearly, this is Hippolyta speaking, or summoning us, I suppose. So we have a number of choices, 6 of them to be exact. We can react warmly that Hippolyta thinks of us. We could be disappointed as it is only a note from our best friend. We can act in confusion, thinking of Mr. Wren Gufford, confusion thinking of Miss Danae Gufford, or confusion thinking of Alcindor, which we have yet to even speak to. We also could say that Hippolyta is being abominably familiar with her antics. Broomhill at the road, 11. Do not disappoint me, Dominique. Looks like our current consensus is number 1, that we should think of her warmly because she thinks of us. I agree. We like our friend Hippolyta. You would recognize that handwriting anywhere, except its meaning is still not transparent to you, though it poses a welcome distraction. You spend perhaps more time pondering the note than needed, grateful for anything that takes you out of your numb, sick feeling, and then look to your servant for an explanation. Ahem, Bruno says. It appears that some of the gentry are out racing today. Racing what? Horses? Hounds? Boats? Horses? You hazard? Equipages, Messer, chariots, curls, and the like. I believe it will be well attended. But of course, race day. How could you have forgotten it? Though you were never allowed to compete, you snuck away a few times to watch. Your guardian disapproved, but never stopped you from going. Perhaps they thought you could learn caution or temperance or some such thing. Ooh, race day. The race is an annual affair and starts at the edge of town, up by Broom Hill. It curves around the outskirts of the city and then winds up near the commons, so that everyone may congratulate the winners and retire to the assembly rooms for refreshment. It is a peculiar prosperous sport, practiced by the gentry. You have never heard of a similar event taking place anywhere else, not in such numbers, not as such a tradition. Here, the winding roads and bluestone markers offer a dangerous challenge. But so, too, does the promise of Spina for the winners offer a tantalizing reward. Somehow, the founders made this one of the rules, one of the rare instances in which acts of great daring can result in remuneration, however slight. The fact still does not impede the perils of the sport, for though the chariots here are light, small conveyances, more suited to whisking around corners than the stately carriages the wealthy drive in the city, they are high, wobbly, and prone to overturning when driven without great skill. More than once you recall seeing the limp form of an injured contestant being carted off to the doctor. Such a sport cannot be without risk, but its allure has certainly not diminished. And, you must admit, when all the vehicles were off at high speed and the road thundered with the horses' hooves, there was something captivating about it. You used to reenact the race afterwards with toy figures or a box that you towed yourself. Now you are of age, you will be expected to attend. Nearly all the gentry will be there. It is one of the best occasions to see and be seen, and to gain influence and respect. If you should win the race, there is a prize of spina. So, are we looking forward to it? Is our mood grim, or we don't think about it? One, two, or three. How shall we react to the news, or I should say, the memory of the chariot race of race day? I see that we are looking forward to it today. All right, I am too. For surely what other fun could be had on a fine day? You take your coat and hat and hurry down to the assigned starting place. Hippolyta is there looking bright against the sky, in a sharp riding habit and jaunty feathered hat. You wonder, for a moment, how she expects it to stay on with only pins to secure it, then realizes that it has two straps attached to the sides in anticipation of high speed. Clearly, she is taking no chances. Her equipage, ugh, I cannot speak today. I apologize, is there, a fine dark polished chariot on two wide wheels. The balance and springs look to be in good order, and a footman is currently checking it over. There is a special spoke for improved balance. Nevertheless, this is clearly a vehicle designed for speed and little else. You look around at the other vehicles and note that Hippolyta's, at least, looks more stable than some. Next to you is a high, showy chariot that clearly will tip over at the slightest provocation. You suppress a shudder. On the other side is a sober brown curricle, which should have a better chance, yet it is hitched to two skittish-looking greys. A few paces off there is a very wild-looking, ruffianish gentleman. He is evidently intoxicated already and is roundly scolding his stable hands. One of the stable hands follows your gaze. Ed Vane, the stable hand says, and the comment includes a good deal of trepidation, ridicule, and fear. If you think of racing, this driver will be the one to watch. His horses are much finer than their driver, and his chariot looks to be in good condition, but still, the horse's ears are flicking back in anxiety at his tantrum. You reevaluate Hippolyta's choice. Not bad, all considered, and if her horses look overly placid, that can only be a good thing in the present context. At this moment, Hippolyta herself sees you looking over and beckons. She is standing within a group of people, and, judging by the number of interested faces that turn towards you, she has been talking of you. You go over. No, you are all wrong, I'll wager, she is saying. Monsieur Montague is quite a different sort of person than you imagine, she says. You find yourself in the unenviable position of being the center of attention without the least idea why. I agree, Trev. I was pretty sure it was him, too. You make a polite greeting to the group and raise your eyebrows at Hippolyta. What on earth has she been telling them? And a good morning to you. Is it not a splendid day for it? Hippolyta pronounces. She is positively brimming with anticipation and a glee that you, quite frankly, find suspect. I was just telling our friends that you're much too prudent to do such a thing. It is impossible to tell whether she simply has a natural talent for goading you or whether she has invested considerable time and effort into cultivating it. Do we grit our teeth, smile honestly, or are we genuinely curious? One, two, or three, everyone. How shall we react to her goading us towards racing? Ed Vane is quite the character, and he is not likable on purpose, clearly. Number three, we have curiosity amongst our audience. Yep, that is the general consensus. We are genuinely curious today. To do what? You ask, once the silence has drawn on a bit and it is clear that she simply will not explain herself until you have responded. Why, to race, of course, she says, and turns the full force of her smile upon you. Miss Beaker, a lady in a pink bonnet says, giggling shrilly, you mustn't. Hippolyta looks down her nose at the other lady. I most certainly shall, Messer Montague. We have been debating. Miss Egger says that you will not race, but I thought that you would like that you would like nothing better. It is a dare, plain and simple. You hesitate, considering. If you refuse, you will show Hippolyta up. However, she has purposely put you in a corner, so perhaps a little lack of courtesy is warranted. Besides, this is a potentially dangerous activity. As to the race itself, there is only room for one in the driver's seat. Well, if you take her offer and acquit yourself well, you'll gain considerable influence among the gentry. And if you do very well, winning would raise you in everyone's esteem and grant you spina for your daring. It may be best to accept her dare. After all, who can you trust to steer better than yourself? Spina follows acts of will, and this is a ritual undertaking. Participating successfully in any way will win you something. Of course, the winner takes a greater share of the glory and Spina. However, in terms of the reins, the full responsibility falls upon you. You risk injury and ridicule should you do poorly, and as a newcomer to this sport, you know neither the roads nor the driving habits of the other competitors. Hippolyta is, by far, the superior driver, and judging by the maniacal glint in her eyes, she has much more experience than you at these kinds of races. She knows the road and the other drivers better than you possibly could. Also, giving her the reins will naturally raise you in her estimation. It might be sensible to ride with Hippolyta, but to insist that she drives. Or perhaps the most sensible option altogether is to keep your feet firmly on the ground. So, our options are very well, but I'm driving. Join the race, but compassionately let Hippolyta drive. Try to stop the race, it's unsafe for all involved. Or watch and cheer Hippolyta on. What shall we do, everyone? One, two, three, or four, please. Let me know. Do note that if we have two drivers, or I should say two passengers, the cart will be heavier and thus less fast. I agree, Trev. We should absolutely not turn around, and it looks like the consensus is to join the race but let Hippolyta drive. So, we shall do just that. You fancy Hippolyta must be aching to show off. Hippolyta, why don't you take the reins? You say. Everyone knows you are the best. Your tone is wrong, however. It is not a good attempt at flattery, if that was what you were attempting, and Hippolyta looks affronted. I have no need to make a display, as anyone here can attest, she responds, a trifle sharply. The faces of those standing near appear to be in agreement with her. However, you've overstepped the mark. Ooh. You climb into the seat beside her, but the sour mood between you two persists and seems to rattle her concentration. For you, the race is a sheer terror of gritting your teeth and holding on for dear life. You feel worse than useless as a second. In the end, Hippolyta wins, but only because Ed Vane loses control of his greys on a tricky corner and has to be aided. Hippolyta accepts the gilded laurel and receives congratulations with a stony face, evidently out of humor. Afterwards, all the gentry drift off to continue the celebrations at Lord Summersby's gardens. Uh-oh. We have upset our friend, and she is not as friendly with us as she used to be. Oh dear. A hubbub breaks out. Some ways away from you, raised voices cause you to look over. A vivid, poorly attired young woman appears to be having a vicious argument with Jocasta Smythe. Her dark hair is half springing out of its knot, and her clothes have been made over so many times that there appears to be little original garment left. Her skin is the color of milky tea. You can't quite catch what she is saying, but her expression is impassioned, close to tears. What is she doing? Mistress Smythe's face is calm, but her narrowed eyes let you know that the consequences for this social misstep will be grave indeed. Jocasta responds with quiet, snapping remarks that appear to cut to the quick. What's going on? You ask. Hippolyta nearby catches your muttered words. Miss Melantho Ferrier, she says. There are times when... She sighs. It is well to grant a person the benefit of the doubt. However, we know Mistress Smythe never forget once slighted. Yocasta says something inaudible that causes the girl's face to heat. You both watch in silence. Perhaps I should intervene, Hippolyta says neutrally. At the moment, however, a footman comes over. I am sorry, but I am being called away. She gives you an apologetic look and goes with him. This leaves you and your conscience. You edge closer to the disagreement. All I wish is a chance. You never believed us, and now you cannot bear to admit that you are wrong, Melantho is saying, voice taut. You know very well that it isn't fair, but you're so caught up in your own. She throws her hands up and makes a wordless noise of frustration. Gentility, my foot. This is not the time nor the place, Jocasta says primly. For all you and your family may seek to subvert the rules, there are persons here who can be harmed by your interference. In any case, I do not understand what it is you want. Her tone is falsely honeyed. My family has nothing to do with this, and I thank you to leave them out of it. You can have nothing more to say. I am in no debt to you, and I shall not entertain any such attempts to control me. Both women notice you suddenly, and the air grows expectant. Well now, Messer Montague, I trust you will not bear any slander. Melantho lets out another sound of frustration. You would twist it around like that. They expect you to choose a side, though the disagreement is not entirely clear. What is abundantly clear is Melantho's low status and the potential damage Yocasta could do to either of your reputations. However, you know Yocasta, and it is likely that she has twisted the situation around somehow so that it looks as though Melantho is in the wrong. How do we intervene? Do we side with Melantho? Do we side with Yocasta? Or do we walk past pretending we don't see them? And snub them both. What do you guys think? What should we do? Personally, I do not like Yocasta in the least, but she is the town gossip. Siding with her here could mean that she's a little more lenient to us. Not necessarily too much yet, but we might be able to flip her opinion of us, or at the very least be able to more easily manipulate her in the future, because we now know something. We just don't know what we know yet. Melantho Ferrier has been spoken of before. Or I should say the Ferrier family has been spoken of before, and while the elder gentry of Prosper does feel sad about their marked and fallen statuses, they have decided not to really intervene on their behalf for any reason. However, if we snub them both, it could go badly all around, even that if that is the safest thing to do here. I agree, Winterfairy. Yocasta is a very not nice lady. Looks like the consensus is that we side with who we believe is the obvious victim, and I would agree. Siding with Melantho is noble of us, I think, to an extent. Excuse me, you say. Is anything amiss? Miss Ferrier closes her mouth abruptly and shakes her head, eyes brimming with tears. Perhaps you would like to comment upon such behavior, Mrs. Smythe says. I, for one, find it quite uncouth, but then what else can one expect from such? Melantho opens her mouth, but you anticipate her. Perhaps we should hear Miss Ferrier's case, you say. Yocasta glares daggers at you. I hardly think that should be necessary, she tries, but you are firm. Melantho appears to be tongue-tied, but casting your mind back on the rumors surrounding the Ferriers, you can guess that it is some kind of malignant gossip which Yocasta has decided to confront her with. I have not been doing anything improper, Melantho finally says. However it may seem, you must believe me. Yocasta is fuming behind her fan. Well, she says and snaps it shut. I shall not impose where my opinions are not wanted. Forgive me, I wished only to be of help. she says in a biting tone and compresses her mouth into a thin line. You'll definitely not hear the end of this anytime soon. You hold your breath, waiting for her to retaliate, but perhaps more ominously, she gives a just short of courtesy bow and stalks away, back rigid. Ooh, ooh, this could be bad. Yocosta's dangerous. Enmity. Melantho is looking at you in horror. What have you done? She whispers. She'll hate us even more now. It wasn't right, you say, and mean it. By the riverbank. Lord Summersby Estate is near the riverbank and hosts what promises to be a diverting fete. Most of the other gentry have already arrived by the time you make your way there. As the weather is fine, there are tables laid out on the grass with a spread of sandwiches, lemonades, and cakes. Lawn games are set up for the children, and the sound of sweet music drifts from the house, loud enough to hear from the lawn. It seems that Alcindor Wakeforth is performing an air on the pianoforte. What is our opinion of the Wakeforth, the young Wakeforth's performance? Have we never heard anything so beautiful? Do we comment on his skill? Do we not care for music? Is it a pretty song, or do you wish you were playing instead? Now, I know for a fact that we are more charisma and talking based in our own skill than anything else. So, number two, a vote for the skill. Any other opinions on the matter? Number two seems to be the consensus. They have an undeniable skill. Alcindor plays the final word. The room resounds with enthusiastic applause. Some moments later, Alcindor edges into a corner, apparently fleeing the attention. Do you speak with them? Um, do we intercept them and say that your playing is beautiful? Do we comment on the weather? Do we say that you do not care for music, which I think we've already decided against already? Or do we say nothing but smile? How shall we intersect with Alcindor in this moment? The playing is beautiful. Do we have a consensus? We do. So, your playing was beautiful. Alcindor blushes but seems pleased. A voice within the room introduces Francis Beaker, Hippolyta's rather retiring spouse, as the next performer. Alcindor nods and excuses themselves. A stately suite echoes over the lawn. Then Francis starts a few pleasant airs. Through the window you can see Hippolyta watching him with warmth in her eyes. It is better not to disturb her just now. The afternoon lengthens. All right. We have caused the Wakeforth to blush, but we have not necessarily struck up a conversation yet, and it has become evening. The edge of the park is beautiful in the twilight, the lamps gleaming down the steps to the drive. The evening air is cool and fresh. The sound of hushed giggles meets your ear. You turn. A mixed group of inebriated partygoers is heading towards the bushes where the river curves around. One of them notices you and beckons. We are going swimming, she says in a loud whisper. There are more giggles from the others, hastily hushed. Join us! No one has the modesty of bathing cabins or dress here. Obviously, such an activity is necessarily scandalous. However, that is a part of the allure of it, and you could gain respect and influence among these people. Do you join in the swimming? We have options: to participate in order to show off, to participate in order to have a good time, to refuse and return to the party, participate in order to get dirt on others, or tell your host before it gets out of hand. How do we interact with this group of youngsters? Well, those of our age, apparently. One, two, three, four, or five. Tell me, how shall we Approach the swimming. Winter Fairy wants to refuse. Okay, Schweigel wants to participate. Does Trav have a opinion? Personally, I think we should participate in order to have a good time. It is a party, after all. A dip in the cold water sounds delightful after the dust of the race. You are genuinely happy to join the party. You sneak down to the river with the rest of the group and strip in the rushes. You are far too close to the party, but this bend is the best place for bathing by far. You plunge into the freezing water, gasping. The gentleman near you follows and squeals at its coldness. Shh, someone says from the rushes. Martin, hush! It's not as if Josie will know, another voice says, and there are peals of hushed laughter. Someone else jumps in and you raise your hand to fend off the enormous splash. You swim a little farther from the group. The water's not terribly swift here and shallow enough to stand up in, but it is cold. A lantern bobs near the bank. Someone is coming. Judging from their businesslike stride, they do not intend to swim. How do you avoid getting caught? Do we hide in the rushes until the searchers have gone, run before we can be caught, or convince the searchers to join the fun? Because if they're in on it, they won't get us in trouble. One, two, or three. What shall we do? One is so far it is hide and not get caught, and hope the others do. But do remember, we are charismatic. We probably could convince the searchers to join, but the consensus is one, so I have been outvoted. As quietly as possible, you climb back onto the shore and sit, dripping and cold in the rushes. What's going on here? You hear, and there are a few shrieks and splashes as the other swimmers attempt to evade being seen. There is the rustle of skirts and the squelch of someone else's footsteps. You hold your breath. I declare this is the most shocking thing, another voice says in tones of great relish. You wince. It sounds like Yocasta. What will people say? You wait in the cold until the whole party has been rounded up and then stagger to your feet and find your clothes. You dry yourself off, quickly dress, and stagger home. The glow of the party drives out the chill for a time. Oh my, oh my. Chapter 5 Town Council. All right. So let's see here. Our subterfuge principle has become neutral, and we have a bit of establishment here. It doesn't look like much of anything else has changed, except that our delicacy and boldness have also become far more neutral. We are now a bit more respectable than we are scandalous. But otherwise, nothing much has gone on. Unfortunately, we have not quite returned Hippolyta back to our good favor, but we have interested the Wakeforth, dear Alcindor, a little bit, and Yocasta still hates, which is not likely to change anytime soon. We did not get caught. We managed to sneak out. I still say we should have attempted to charm them, but that's okay. Maybe my next run on this novel, I will attempt it. Chapter 5: Town Council. Night draws closer and receives you in its arms. Sunlight streams through your window. You've overslept. Bruno knocks on your door, enters holding a letter. Excuse me, Messer, a summons has come. Who is it from? You ask, wincing at the memory of the last summons to the chariot races. It is from Mr. Hallwood, Mr. Anthony Hallwood. Your lawyer. It is likely important. You struggle out of bed. I had better go then. Thank you, Bruno. He nods and places a pot of chocolate on the table, along with a plate of rolls, butter, and preserves. I thought you might prefer to go soon, he says. How do we respond to the only servant we have in the entirety of this house? Do we nod and smile, saying nothing? Do we tell him that he must not presume such things as this? Do we compliment him that once again he has saved us? Or do we thank him for his services? One, two, three, or four? Trav says three. What is the consensus today? Or I should say in this moment. Three it is. Once again, Bruno, you have saved me. Bruno's face beams. He bows and departs. You examine the letter. Hallwood writes, there is a meeting of the town council today, and I should be glad if you would join. It would prove beneficial to our cause. The meeting is a good chance to impress the most important members of the council and to finally speak with Roland Gufford. You have breakfast, dressed hastily, and depart to the town hall. The town hall is a slightly comical building in the neoclassical style. The architect is not entirely successful. The portico conjures the images of an acorn rather than the temples of antiquity. The meeting is held in an ornate, richly paneled room lined with books. The Office of Records and the municipal archives are adjacent, and you catch a glimpse of leather-bound volumes before the door swings shut. The room is filled with well-attired gentry milling about. You spot Colonel Ajax, of course, as magistrate. He could hardly be absent from such an occasion. His countenance is solemn as usual, but his presence acutely intent behind his mask of formality. There are others as well, though. Lady Eugene is standing by a potted fern, speaking animatedly with a person in a mauve riding coat. You recognize a few other important persons by sight, if not by name. Most are much older than you, and from their dress and habit, clearly well established in the town. That gentleman over there could be the master of ceremonies. The lady there you saw dancing a quadrille at the assembly a few nights ago. How do you feel in this important company? Do we feel at ease and at home? Slightly out of place? Excited to learn more about the running of Prosper, or feel well positioned to learn secrets and gain power? One, two, three, or four for those of us who are here. Trav, I'm sure, will return shortly. But thank you for letting us know. And how do we feel in this important company? Uh, us having spent most of our time in the city amongst similar levels of gentry, but they're city gentry, not Prosper gentry. Slightly out of place. Interesting, Winter Fairy, interesting. Honestly, I feel more inclined to be well positioned to learn secrets and gain power. Ah, well, so long as you agree with me on number four, I think we'll go that route because I feel this will be the more interesting one. Attention moves back to those whose names you do not know. It would be good news indeed if the colonel should approve of you. If not, it will be very difficult to get on his good side. His good opinion, once lost, will be reevaluated only under the severest of circumstances. The same is true of Lady Eugene, though she is more wont to reevaluate persons after extensive acquaintance. Still, it would not do to get on the wrong side of either of them. You move towards the center of the room, and Anthony Hallwood appears by your side. I'm glad you could come, he says with a characteristic quiet mien. I will catch Mr. Roland Gufford for you. A small, sharpish, middle-aged gentleman scurries in the door then. Pardon I am late, he says to the room at large. You have never seen him before. You would certainly recognize him if you had, for he looks acutely uncomfortable. Beringed fingers twist and press against each other. His gaze is constantly darting back and forth, as if taking the full measure of the room. Antony makes a minute movement. His face shows no sign of his previous apprehension. He has his smooth professional mask on him. That is him, he says under his breath. I shall endeavor to get an audience with him. Wait here a moment. He goes over to Gufford, greets him amiably, and gestures back at you. Gufford shoots a brief glance in your direction and looks immediately away again, as if something about you causes him fright. You cannot hear his reply. Uh-oh. Something swirls in your gut, wrenches your attention away from the scene at hand into a deeper feeling. Stillness. There is something off about Roland Gufford. But what? Do we spend a few moments observing Mr. Gufford? Do we listen to our gut instinct about Gufford? Or do we persuade one of the council members to give us information on Gufford? One, two, or three? How do we deal with our strange feelings? Winter Fairy says two. Do we have a consensus on the matter? We've heard quite a bit about Mr. Roland Gufford already, Winter Fairy. It would be good to have another opinion on him, but both Hallwood and Hallwood of Hallwood and I forget the third name has mentioned and spoken of him. We've heard from Mr. Wren Gufford's opinion. We've also heard Miss Danae Gufford's opinion, and that is her father. So I'm more inclined to the earlier two, but I feel like following our gut on this one might be interesting. For some reason, Mr. Gufford makes the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. You close your eyes briefly and listen to your body's reactions. His presence makes you feel instantly tense. Ordinarily, these are signs of a person very much in the habit of lying, someone accustomed to resorting to manipulation to get what they desire. Ooh. The ringing in your ear subsides, and you find yourself able to breathe normally again. There are no words to describe this strange occurrence. You look over. Anthony Hallwood is beckoning. May I present Messer Dominique Montague to you, Messer Montague, Mr. Roland Gufford. Upon close, Mr. Gufford appears even shiftier. He is constantly checking your expression, and Mr. Hallwood's as if for hints of some deeper meaning, and he keeps glancing back at the door as if he wishes to escape. How do you do? You respond. Very well, that is to say, you will find me always well, he says. His voice has a nasal ring. It is difficult to discern marks of likeness between this person and his daughter, Danae Gufford, of the luminous liquid dark eyes, or Wren, his nephew, for that matter. Messer Montague has a particular matter of interest for you. Someone taps Hallwood on the shoulder, and he nods. If you will excuse me. Faced with you alone, Mr. Gufford's pallor lessens, and the jumpiness in his expression turns to a cold, calculating stare. I take it you are not long in Prosper. Not long indeed, although I was raised here. His thin eyebrows lift slightly at this. Raised, is that so? You were born elsewhere, then, outside the fold? It is an invitation to give more information about your parents and your background, if you wish to. However, sometimes directness, though less polite, can be more suitable and effective. Do we take our time? Take care, Kay Schweigel. Thanks for joining in. See you again. Do we take our time to respond delicately? Do we redirect the conversation to our property issues? Do we impress Gufford with well-sounding lies? Charm Gufford with a compliment, or investigate his secret? What do you think, Winter Fairy? How should we deal with this Mr. Roland Gufford and his shiftiness? There are many things and we can do. Let's see here. Responding delicately is the safe choice. Redirecting the conversation to our property issues is a way forward for us. Impressing him with well-sounding lies, probably a terrible idea. Charming him is something that we absolutely can do. In fact, we have the skill set for. And investigating his secret probably will not go well because our intelligence is not great. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not great. So one, two, and four are the ways to go. But yes, four I think is probably our best in this situation. We want to make him think well of us enough that he will relax a little bit. Ah, But what does that matter when faced with the accomplishments of those who have truly made a contribution to society? You offer with a winning grin. He seems slightly taken aback, but accepts the compliment with flustered ill grace. He levels you with a glassy, intense stare. You cannot quite make out its meaning. Fascinating. Time to redirect this conversation back to the matter at hand. But, as we were saying, it is a matter of property I wish to discuss. I understand that you have worked within the field in the city. Before my elevation to the gentry, you mean. His gaze is suddenly cold. A fine thing to discuss indeed. You continue. I am in a position of difficulty, as you may know. It is taboo to directly discuss Spina, but on the other hand, everyone is somehow aware of where the others stand in terms of influence and power. You have not that glow of wealth that surrounds a few of the very well placed families. I have, until now, been living in the city. My guardian left me some small property, but it has been nearly impossible to extract from Prosper. I was advised to speak with you on the matter. He rocks back on his heels and taps his hand on his wrist. Ah, well, if it is a matter of commerce, then I suppose I must advise. He considers. You do have one option available to you which, perhaps, the good Mr. Hallwood is not aware of, or does not wish to directly communicate with you himself, for it stands, shall we say, at the edge. It is not quite overstepping the boundaries which constrain us, if you take my meaning, but it is still at the edge. How do we respond to this? Do we want to hear about it? Do we not want anything to do with it? Do we want to hear it to evaluate our options, or do we want to draw out the conversation to learn his secret? Ooh. Number 4 is tempting. Number 3, probably our best bet. Um, number 1 would also be okay. I don't think number 2 will do very well for us. Number 3, Winter Fairy says number 3. Well, not in the mood to learn secrets. All right, we will hear it to evaluate our options. Go on, you say. If the law is being intractable, it is possible to expedite the legal process by means of hiring a broker. There are certain persons in the city and in other places who are accustomed to make a complete exchange of your wealth. They accept some part of the risk of the transaction and find another family who would like to move to Prosper and claim a land stake. In exchange, they give you the sum of your wealth in crowns. That is, the currency of the city and all outer lands. You're nodding. This does not seem as complicated as you had thought. He holds up a cautioning finger. This may seem simple, but there is, as with all transactions, and indeed all business, a substantial risk, and a heavy cost to conducting the exchange in this matter. It would give you your fortune much more quickly should you choose to accept the risk, but it is not a thing to be undertaken lightly. Is this an opportunity you'd like to explore in the future? Now, we have not been told what the risk is. Um, there are, as it were, rules, as in capital R rules, in Prosper about how the land stakes work. It is part of what keeps the wood and the weir and the daemons at bay and also allows them to interact with the humans of Prosper. The land stake that we have carved out of the wood, quite literally, as Prosper the town has become, is all wrapped up in all of this. And so the substantial risk, even though it has not been outlined here, is something we should definitely consider. Um, so to explore it further, we can say yes, because it's a sensible plan. No, because it is wrong. Yes, there's nothing wrong with benefiting from a loophole. Or no, because we do not trust Gufford. Now, we have been to Gufford's home. We do know that he has his land stake paperwork on display in the front hall, probably because this may in fact be how he ended up moving to Prosper, which is why he knows of it. So, that might be also why he's shifty AF. So, this is a hard choice. I don't think it's a sensible plan. I don't believe it is a sensible plan at all. I don't know if it's wrong necessarily. It is definitely a loophole. But trusting Gufford over our lawyers, uh, our lawyer, Mr. Holland, is. I mean, we were directed to him from Mr. Holland because we did want to leave Prosper as quickly as possible. So I think either 3 or 4 is our best way to go. We did want to leave, so benefiting from a loophole. I don't know if this is a no way back situation. Ah, but Winter Fairy says no, because we do not trust Gufford. We do not know his secret. We're gonna say no. All right. That is not a solution I would wish, you say politely. I'm afraid I must work with the resources I have already at hand. Gufford looks surprised, but quickly smooths his face. Then I'm afraid I cannot help you, he replies. Is that relief in his voice? You nod. A space is clearing towards the table, and judging from the general motion in the room, the meeting seems poised to begin. You hastily thank Mr. Gufford and follow the others to the table. Time for the meeting. Colonel Ajax rises from his place near the head of the table. Thank you for gathering here, and welcome, he inclines his head at you, to Monsieur Dominique Montague for joining us at Mr. Holland's invitation. You nod in response to the curious faces looking your way. The first topic of the day is the problem of wood smuggling. Apparently, there is much more to the lumber tax than you knew, it being such a prized commodity. It is forbidden to cut down any of the trees of the wood. Outside smugglers are taking advantage of this situation. Some council members are nodding, fully engaged with Colonel Ajax's speech, while others appear unsettled. Others still seem to be barely containing their boredom. The council proposes to continue with the taxation and to request that customs guards be stationed around the town in addition to those already on the highways to the city. Large pieces of lumber are difficult to transport, after all, without any visible sign of their presence. There certainly will be a way of halting the miscreants. Roland Gufford's behavior during all of this is puzzling. At times he looks intently focused, at others he looks repeatedly towards the windows and the door. Do we think that he's almost afraid of something? That he's almost anticipating something? Or that he must be a naturally anxious person? What do we think of Mr. Roland Gufford's uh, 2? Winter Fairy says 2, almost as if he's anticipating something. That that seems fair. I would have to agree. Ajax places his hand on the table. Excellent, settled. Would you agree? The gentry give murmurs of assent and the conversation moves on. Now, we come to the next order of business. Ajax turns to Lady Eugene, exchange a long look. He folds his hands carefully on top of the table, as if steeling himself for rebuttal. The charter that founded Prosper declares that the marked shall be given certain allowances, but in practice most of these are nominal. Most marked families today are expelled from Prosper or forced to take up trade. I submit that perhaps it is time to reevaluate these policies. For what purpose? Asks a gentleman in blue. He looks thoroughly confused. Are not these people allowed to remain in Prosper? Despite jeopardizing everyone, adds a person dressed in pale green. Indeed, a cross-looking lady adds, tapping her fingers on her arms in evident annoyance. This is a touchy topic, apparently. For what purpose should we risk the good of all those who enjoy our elevated status? To pander to only a few? They have made their bed, let them lie in it. I propose that they be allowed to live near the wilds only. That will take care of the problem quite nicely. But if you get rid of the land stake, they will very quickly fall or become lost, another person interjects. It signifies little. They have already transgressed beyond the extent of our noble station, the first gentleman replies. I, too, vote for moving them nearer the wilds. Ajax holds up his hand. That was not what I suggested. at present, though they may remain, most often, marked families leave Prosper. The sons, for instance. There are, you are right, some at the edge of gentility who, like the farriers, remain, but many opportunities are not available to them. In effect, they are quite cast out from society. It is, perhaps, possible that these restrictions may be changed. Uproar breaks out. The idea of sharing resources or even making slight allowances for those who have fallen family members is apparently anathema for most of those present. Lady Eugene looks grim, and you cannot tell Colonel AX's thoughts at all. What is your own opinion? Do we believe that the marks should be removed from society as soon as possible? That the marks should be treated with more compassion than they are at present? Or would we like to change this? 1, 2, or 3? Ah, ever the compassionate heart is Winter Fairy. I agree. I think they should be treated with more compassion. Much of the clamor is actually due to the vague terms in which this question was raised. You see a different solution, however. If those with resources helped those at closest risk of falling, it would lessen the burden and make society easier. Right now, although the very established families could fall as well, of course, by loss of spina, the sheer rumored amounts of their spina hoards make that unlikely, while those at the margins are cataclysmically ever closer to toppling over the edge each day. Do you want to suggest a charity project to the council? It would reevaluate how the marked and borderline families are treated. We could suggest it to everyone, suggest it to one person, or keep our head down out of the mess. What do we think? Are we brave enough to suggest to all and try our hand at being very charismatic? Well, if we suggest it to the right one person, they could influence the rest, such as, oh, I don't know, Lady Eugene, who is very well considered already. We may not have enough reputation on our own to hold our own in this council meeting. However, if we suggest it to the right person, we might be able to influence the meeting anyway. All right, I will suggest it to one person. The room erupts in noise as the council members confer among themselves. This is your chance to approach one of the more important council members and gain a powerful ally to your cause. For any proposal, there are certain aspects in which it is good to emphasize, depending on who one is talking to. AX values integrity and moral uprightness. Lady Eugene is more disposed to a well-turned phrase, but to be in good standing should appeal to her as well. The success of your scheme at this beginning stage, therefore, also rests upon your ability to effectively communicate it with one of the two. The council speaks about issues with wood smuggling, how the marked are treated, and changes in protocol for families at the edge of gentility, e.g., the farriers. Here is a chance to propose a new approach that helps the community. In the meeting, you learn an important piece of information about the town's founding and the keystones anchoring the town. There is a pause for refreshment, and your moment has risen. To whom do you suggest the idea? To AX? To Lady Eugene? Or we've changed our mind and we won't suggest it? Now, we know Lady Eugene thinks well of us, so that is essentially the best option we have, and I agree. We are talking to Lady Eugene. There's no bones about it. You catch Lady Eugene near the door. Lady Eugene, I should be very happy if I could speak with you for a moment. There was something particular I wish to ask you about. She looks at you dubiously. Yes? You now must choose how to present your idea to her, that she would best receive it. Lady Eugene favors social niceties and will look highly upon a well-turned phrase. However, if that is not your greatest strength, there are other ways to approach the matter. Do we present it charmingly and persuasively, emphasize its moral aspects, or present it boldly and with conviction? However, we all know that we're charming, so we're going to go with charming because, of course, we're going to be charming. I do believe that, as exalted as the status we enjoy and as pleasant and right our society here in Prosper, it would greatly benefit everyone who claims the title of gentry to assist those in need. I, myself, would be happy to offer aid, and if only a few people were to join me, we should contribute to the balance and beauty of society as a whole. Lady Eugene smiles warmly. This is just what I hoped to hear. And this aid would take the form of a charity endeavor, do you mean? Yes, to encourage their continued integration in society. She seems delighted. You have my support, both within the council and outside it. She smiles, and you get the feeling that the work she will do spreading the word and dispersing the plan outside the official meeting will be more useful than anything raised within it. I thank you, Monsieur Montague. But this is unheard of, a person in a stately grey morning coat counters, rising. The marked have their place, let them keep it, as we keep ours. This changing the order of things, it can come to no good end. Heads are nodding along with these words. You still have work to do if you wish to see this motion passed or your idea put into action. How do you respond to win the council over to your side? Are we polite and deliberate? Do we fabricate information to support our cause, or do we raise our voice? I don't really think that lying was a good idea. Um, Raising our voice could gain attention, but honestly, Lady Eugene will appreciate us to be far more charming and less loud. So I agree, Winter Fairy. Responding politely and deliberately seems to be the way to go. You can think what you like, you say, attempting to keep calm, but I can tell that if you don't believe me, you'll soon regret it. That definitely was not what you wished to say. The gray-coated person's eyebrows raised nearly to their hairline. Well, that is, I mean, but you were soon drowned out by the buzzing conversation all around. Another person, a lady in a rose-colored shawl, stands. With respect, Monsieur Montague, there is much you may not understand, and, to be indelicate, there are rumors. You cannot be speaking on neutral grounds. She says, her tone accusing. You wish, perhaps, to have everything under your control, but you are new, Monsieur Montague. You do not know our ways or the needs of the town. It would, perhaps, be better if you were to keep to your own business, since it is so interesting. How do you respond to these pointed accusations? Do we accuse the speaker of corruption, rally our supporters, or verbally attack the speaker? Honestly, this is the part where having Lady Eugene on our side is probably our best bet because she is a force to be reckoned with. So I think we should rally our supporters and hope. There are many of us who perceive the way things are going here. I am not alone. There is a murmur of agreement from those around you. Evidently, you have been speaking for many. Who here stands with me? I do, calls a gentleman in a striped waistcoat. And I, says a lady, standing off to the side. There is no call for such language. Monsieur Montague is quite on the right track. Your accuser looks sour. I only wish to raise a point. She sits down. Evidently, you have won this round. Well, says Colonel Ajax mildly, shall we put it to the vote? A count is taken of hands. It is soon clear that an overwhelming majority of the room is with you. Yes. Very well, says Lady Eugene. We shall change the policy of treatment of the marked and set into motion this charity plan. Monsieur Montague, you are at the head of this project. I shall brook no excuses. This was your idea, and you must see it through. The feeling of winning with such support is exhilarating. I shall be happy to do so, you say. The mood of the room shifts to one of cheerful celebration. For the most part, though, there are a few dark looks from the dissenters at the back. More than one council member comes to shake your hand and clap you on the back. For a newcomer to town, you are doing exceedingly well in the top echelons of society. It is an occasion to be pleased. Congratulations to us. That was tense. You gather your things and prepare to leave the town hall. Gufford's odd behavior lies heavy on your mind. Only Colonel AX is still present. Here is the chance to say something about Gufford's odd behavior, but you might risk alienating yourself or causing offense. Pressing too far on forbidden topics can also result in loss of spina. Do you bring up your unease? So, do we speak of our unease forthrightly? Do we do so but delicately, or do we absolutely not talk about this? Now, to be frank, let's check our relationship here. Colonel AX is still neutral to us. Lady Eugene thinks even more highly of us, which is good. Um, so, of these two, Colonel AX has not necessarily any particular reason to think about what we have to say, but he doesn't have no he has doesn't have any reason not to. Um, we do have a bit of influence, which is at a nice quality. We do have some philanthropy now, interestingly enough, and we are getting towards a decent amount of respectable as well in our reputation. Um, we still have a great amount of charisma, and even our intelligence has improved just a touch. Um, we're more delicate than bold. We are more subterfuge than principled still, but not by much. And we still have a bit of accomplishment here. So, as far as qualities go, he might be willing to listen to us, all things considered. But I would suggest we do it delicately if we do anything at all. We have not managed to gain anything with Colonel AX, but we haven't lost it either. So this could be an opportunity to ingratiate ourselves to him as well, Winter Fairy. But if you feel like we should absolutely not get involved on whatever Mr. Gufford is about, considering we have turned him down, we could ignore it entirely. How curious do we want to think? Okay, best to wait. All right, we will absolutely not. You will stay safe. No need to risk loss of Spina by breaking taboo. You gather your things and depart. Your path takes you again around the curve of the road that leads to the wood. You halt. The memory of that place washes over you, pungent like the scent of finds from afar, and curious. If you wish to bargain with the Weirs or to find out more information about the magic that holds all of you and Prosper, this would be an opportunity to do so, although one that always bears the weight of great risk with it. The wood is dangerous. And at the same time, you have already faced its darkness and survived. Surely you can do so once more if it is your desire. Do you enter the wood? Do we enter it eagerly, reluctantly? Do we not take a risk from it, or do we still feel the marks from last time? 1, 2, 3, or 4? How shall we deal with the wood, or rather, our second opportunity to go play in the woods? And now I have a musical from Into the Woods stuck in my head. Caution. Oh, goodness. Your curiosity is so cautious today, Winter Fairy. No, I still have the marks from last time. At the edge of the town hall, you notice that someone is following you. You stop and turn. It is a petulant, disheveled figure dressed in threadbare gray. Melintho Farrier. She looks mostly normal, but an air of otherness around her and a few twigs in her hair reveal the truth. She has been in the wood. Good day, you greet her. Can I assist you? Melintho stares glassy. You have the uneasy sensation that she is looking through you, through flesh and sinew and thought and bone. A breeze stirs, and you hear the creaking of branches, that there are no trees in this part of the square. You have met them, she says simply, and it is unequivocally clear from the jolt of your heart that she is referring to the Weirs. Do not pretend that it isn't so. Talking like this, she is a liability, evidently unable to restrain her speech and manner. If she should expose your transgression to the other gentry, you could lose Spina. And evidently she has more information than you on the nature of the wood and those that dwell within. How do we proceed? Do we interrogate her, reprimand her, or lie to get more information? I do not suggest lying. I have shied away from lying this entire run through the story. And I don't think reprimanding her would be a good idea in public, considering how we saved her from Yocasta the last time. I'm glad you agree with me, Winter Fairy. Let us interrogate her and see what we can find out. Do you know what is going on? You say, but it comes out in a hoarse croak, and your words lack conviction. I demand that you tell me. Melintho crosses her arms and looks decidedly obstinate. I don't know what you mean. But surely, the wood. You flounder for some point to hit on that could force her to give you more information, but nothing comes to mind. Nothing of the sort, if you'll excuse me. Melantho turns and departs without another word. You watch her stomp with all the impetuousness of youth until she turns the corner, and then you cannot avoid thinking of what has been said any longer. A line has been drawn, and you stand upon one side of it. The question is that where you wish to be? The rising wind follows you home. Oh dear, that didn't get us much at all. Chapter 6, The Picnic. Changes have been made. Could have gone better, things could have gone worse. We have avoided certain things as well. Whew, that was an intense chapter. Though, truly, all of them but the first one kind of has been. Today is bright and clear, the breeze is apple scented. You head out for a morning stroll and come upon a group of gentry in dog carts with hampers, baskets, and all the trappings of a picnic. The host, a cheerful person you vaguely recognize from the council meeting, waves to you as you pass. Oh, Monsieur Montague, pray join us. We are having a picnic on the far hill. It would be a splendid thing if you could join us. There is, you see, some space in one of the dog carts. With all the well-bred faces turned expectantly towards you, the pressure to join is high. All right, Winter Fairy, say hello to your son for me. Give him all our love. But it is a gorgeous day, with picnicking, and picnicking may perhaps lessen the strain of all that is on your plate at the moment. The dog carts leave the main road some way out of town and head up the far hill close to the wilds. It gives a kind of thrill to most of the gentry to picnic within plain view of these noxious daemon-ridden lands. The far hill, a picturesque prospect, makes riding in a trap rough work, and the party continues up to it on foot. The servants jump down from their posts on the carts and move smartly, setting up blankets and trays of food, while the gentry mill around elegantly, taking in the view. You take a moment to take stock of who is present. Alcindor is here, admiring the view a little ways off, eyes alight. On your left, Danae is helping one of the servants take out a crystal plate from a hamper. The tables and cloths are laid out with plates of viands, cheeses, and cakes. There are bowls of fresh berries as well. The sunlight warms you. Perhaps this won't be so bad. You look to your left and freeze. Yocasta is present as well. She must have arrived in the dog cart behind you so that you missed her ostentatious presence. She looks a little too pleased to see you. Who are you happiest to see? Oof. Oh, we have such choice. Such choice. We could speak to Alcindor because we have yet to speak to Alcindor. We could speak to Danae, who we are already very sweet on. We are not happy to see any of these people. We could wish that the mysterious Wren was here, or that our bestie Hippolyta was here since we so upset her the last time we saw her. Of course, we could be looking forward to confronting Yocasta in all of her caustic glory. Goodness, goodness. Such choices to be made. Hmm. Hmm. Mhm. I don't know. I don't know what I want. Actually, that's not true. I think I do know what I want. I would like to talk to Alcindor because this is the first time we've really been able to talk with him, and I'm intrigued about this person. Your gaze drifts across the picnickers, and it lights on Alcindor, sitting off to one side of the main picnic area, sketching in a small cloth book. An intense expression rings out the planes of their face. They catch your gaze and smile. You move towards them, and Alcindor closes their book and stands to greet you. Good day, Alcindor says politely. I had hoped to see you, you exclaim. A small smile creases Alcindor's face. You are most kind. Tut tut, coming through, your host says, waving through one of the servants with a heavy platter, and you are separated. Alcindor gets turned around and drops one of their pages. You dive to get it, reaching the spot at the same time as Alcindor. Your heads bump together heavily. The servant swerves to avoid dropping the tray, but the moment has drawn attention. Before you can reach the refreshments, Yocasta, flanked by two cronies, intercepts you. Are you feeling quite recovered, Messer? She inquires in sacristan tones. A glance at her face reveals an unpleasant smirk. A cold ball settles in the pit of your stomach. The sycophant on her right plays her part perfectly, piping in with, Oh, has Miss Sarah Montague been unwell? That is one explanation, Yocasta says in a voice that carries, eyes never leaving your face. I can think of no other reason for returning from the wood late at night. A hush settles in the company. Then people look away, pretending not to have heard. You can feel the strain of 24 pairs of ears listening acutely for your next words. Yocasta could cause real problems for you, she continues in this vein. If you get the reputation for delving into woodward things, you could lose Spina. For the rules which have made entering the wood taboo apply to being discovered, not the action itself. The founders did not wish that everyone should run willy-nilly to make bargains to stave off the tithe. How do you counter Yocasta's accusation? Do we call her out? A duel is the only way to handle such pernicious rumors. Do we grit our teeth and let it go? She who protests too much looks guiltier. Do we deliver a sugar-coated insult in return, or make a conciliatory comment? Mm, mm, that is that is a question. How to deal with this woman who hates us so? Now look at how much she hates us. Yes, 36%. It's low, but it's not terribly low. Hmm. Honestly, I'm gonna sugar-coated insult this in return. It is time to duel with our charm and our wits, and I feel it'd be more fun. Time time to duel. And we all know what they say about those who pay too much attention to others' affairs, you say sweetly. They who point the first finger usually have much darker secrets to hide. Yocasta's cheeks turn crimson and she falls still. I cannot believe you would impugn me in such a way, she said stiffly, but apparently the trap worked. The dispute has made things uncomfortable. Yocasta stalks off in a huff and is joined by several of her cohorts. They take a close turn around the picnic blankets, muttering vehemently and shooting dark looks. Dark clouds move in swiftly, heavy with rain. Thunder rolls ominously above the hills, heralding a big storm. I do not quite like the look of that, one lady says, frowning. You cannot help but agree. The shower hits, and the well-bred atmosphere dissipates into giggles and shrieks. The picnic is bundled away, and there is a mad dash for the dog carts, which quickly fill. Those left behind scramble for cover at the bottom of the hill. Luckily, you have your umbrella. But it is a long trek down the hill and to shelter. There are a few trees downhill. You race towards them with the remaining gentry. Who do you look for in the mad dash? Do we look for Alcindor? Do we look for Danae? Do we look for a council member? Or do we not look for anyone at all? Hmm. Well, Alcindor, we have attempted to be sweet upon and have not had much opportunity, really. Danae, of course, we are sweet on, and really, we like her a great deal. A council member would be a play towards upping our reputation and our sway in society, and not looking for anyone but being out for ourselves is probably the safest choice to be the least amount of wet. um, oh, do we follow? Do we follow curiosity, affection, or society? That is, I don't think we should just be out for ourselves. I think that's a terrible idea. Hmm, quite the quandary. Quite the quandary. I am going to go for council member. I think going toward for a council member and upping our status is probably the best way to go, considering our charity project. This is a chance to extend your influence with the town. The only council member you see, however, is a portly, bespectacled gentleman with half-moon glasses. Partridge is his name, you recall. He sometimes serves as a notary. He dashes for the last cart, but it is already full. He rushes to and fro for a time before spotting the cover of the apple trees. You manage to end up beneath the same tree. Well, dash it all, if it isn't raining, I declare, he says. I was not expecting this. The weather has been changing rapidly, that is true. However, if you seek to extend your influence, you'll have to do better than exchanging pleasantries. Although the die has been cast, there is always time to ameliorate your cause or gain more supporters. How do you do this? Do we ask straight out what Partridge thinks of Prosper? Do we empathize with Partridge and gain insight into his life, or do we charm him? Oof. We do have some amount of empathy and charisma. So empathy or charisma could do well here. I actually think that because our charm is higher, we should charm him. That is my choice. I don't know if anyone is around to give an opinion on the matter, but yes, I think we will charm him. How fortunate I was to attend the council meeting where the great of our community are at work, you say, flashing a brilliant smile at Partridge. It was indeed an honor to behold the work that must be done for the successful running of society. And you are there all the time, is it not so? Partridge gives a small smile. Most of the time, I admit, knitting indeed. I do not wonder. And to have a hand in how the town develops, that must be very interesting. But it seems that it is not often that things are changed. Most of us are not fond of changing the status quo, it is true, Partridge concedes. But for myself, I do find that sometimes this is an opening. Sometimes you wish things were different? How exactly? I cannot say, not entirely, only that things were not so pressured between us, you understand. You give him a smile and your word of assurance. You have made an ally, it would seem. Partridge bids you farewell, and covering his head, dashes down the hill toward town. You open your umbrella and dash towards the apple trees closest to the road, where you wait for a time. The rain makes a beautiful melody, and you are mostly dry. Soon there is a pause in the torrent, and you dash toward town. Most of the other gentry have already gone ahead. You can see them down the road, their garments flapping in the wind. You take a shortcut down the hill towards the wilds. Steam from the rain has caused a greenish vapor to arise, which shrouds them, lending them a funeral glow. As you round the bend, you come upon a group of thralls. You halt. chilled. There are more than you have ever seen at one time, 12 or 13 in all. There must be. Their grayish countenances are intent upon a spot on the ground, and in their hands are shovels and picks. A chill runs up and down your spine, but it takes a moment to find the reason for it, and then it hits you. There is no daemon, no palanquin, no sharp-spoked carriage with them. They are out daemonless. You've never seen this before, never witnessed the grey pall of the fallen without their overlords. A few of them are holding shovels, but apparently are doing little with them. They appear to be conferring heads together. They are up to something. It occurs to you there must be some restrictions on where the daemons can and can't go. For, in fact, you have never seen a daemon walking on their own 2 feet in town. Always they are carried in bath chairs or vehicles. Always they have the fallen with them. There must be some rules to control the daemon's movement. The thought is breathtaking. If there are rules governing these interactions, what are they, and can they be evaded? The thralls appear to have finished their wordless conferring and are now moving slowly towards you. There is a menacing air about them. You grit your teeth in preparation for the clash ahead. How do we face the fallen? Do we attempt to fight them? I would think that would be a very bad idea. Do we attempt to question them? That could be an interesting experience. Do we observe them to see if we can intuit anything else, which would depend on our empathy? Or do we offer them spina, which we don't have much to begin with? And there are, well, 12 or 13 of them. Personally, I think observing them is the safest bet. We might intuit something, we might not, but our empathy is pretty high. Attempting to question them could go very badly for us. They are quite menacing, after all. I'm going to observe them. You stand and watch, but your presence is so nervous that the fallen soon notice you. They stand in front of the object they are digging up, and the message is clear. You are not wanted here. It seems they are concealing something. You make a face at them and retreat. Let them keep their secrets. You have enough of your own for today in any case. The clouds retreat, but do not fully clear. The sky is heavy with mist. The stillness is the perfect accompaniment for your thoughts. Now that you've had more time in this odd town, how do you feel about living in Prosper? Is it stimulating? Do we wish we didn't have to leave so soon? Do we feel at home again, or can we not wait to take leave of this terrible place? I'm not sure we wish to leave. I'm not sure we uh, regret not wanting to leave, or rather, I don't think we feel at home, as it were. I don't think we're necessarily eager to leave because we've gotten wrapped up in a couple of things. And I don't think we necessarily wish to leave so quickly either as we once did. I actually think it's fairly certainly stimulating, and that's what I'm going to go with. Each to their own. So we've gotten to chapter 7. Chapter 7. All right. So our current is in the low 70s. Our intelligence is still just a mid-level 45%. We're more delicate than bold, more subterfuge than principled, and our empathy is a good, healthy 65. Our health is still at 90%. That cat scratch has not left us yet. We are somewhat accomplished, but notably average. We are a bit respectable more than scandalous these days. We have a bit of influence too, not 100% influence, but we have a substantial amount of influence now. We are sort of neutral and dangerous, and slightly woodbound and slightly less weird sensed than we were before. But our philanthropy has gone up as we are now a charitable person in town, or at least known to be. Our relationships with the daemons and wares are neutral. Hippolyta has decided that she's a little bit upset with us, but still is our friend. Colonel AX is still very neutral, but Lady Eugene likes us a bit. Mr. Wren is still fairly neutral to us, but slightly leaning towards happier. Miss Danae likes us a bit, and so does Alcindor Wakeforth. They like us a bit as well. We've been a nice reprieve from their usual suitors. Yocasta, on the other hand, still hates us, and likely always will. We still only have 12 speed into our name. We have passed on ways of getting more of it in the race, and well, the picnic was brief, as was the party. So, Chapter 7, The Limits. I feel this is where we're going to get into the plot, as it were. Prosper feels unsettled. The breeze is too stiff, the sunlight glancing off the roofs at odd angles. Everything feels crystalline, just off. Do you think this can be attributed to any particular cause? Do we feel that the daemons are behind this, considering we saw their thralls, the fallen, up to something? Do we feel that the wares are behind this? Do we believe that Prosper's humans are to blame, considering the recent goings on? Or is the situation incredibly complicated? I honestly feel like we don't have enough information, so I'm going to choose the situation is incredibly complicated. I feel like we need more information on what is happening. Easy as it would be to blame any one side, you know in your heart that there are a great many factors at play, um, and a great many threads that you do not fully comprehend. It would be foolish to jump to conclusions when the situation is simply as it is, complex, unwieldy, and unraveling daily. Out of the corner of your vision, a flash of crimson and vermilion, of coal-black spiked chariot wheels makes your heart stop and start again. A pale face, slender and sharp-chinned, surveying the street, is visible through your window. Your blood runs cold. A primal fear courses through your veins. Your mouth goes dry with the horror of recognition. It is the daemon from the assembly. 5 thralls, one at the box driving, 2 serving as footmen at the back, and the other 2 lumbering along behind the chariot, catch your gaze. Carriages crowd around you, forcing you into their wake. That 5th thrall, that one to the left, greyish and pinched. His face is known to you. The street turns into a smaller lane, and the crush of the carriages on market day force you even closer in the chariot's wake. 2 of the thralls have most definitely seen you. How do we feel about this? Are we not concerned? Are we terrified? Are we overcome with disgust, curious, or are we wary but overall calm? I feel like outward calm, is the best option in this scenario. The daemons are definitely a concern, but as much as we likely should be terrified of them, we haven't interacted with them so terribly much that we know to be terrified. Being disgusted with them is not going to get us anywhere. Being curious is likely a terrible idea. So I think feeling wary of them for all that we have experienced of the daemons, the falling, and the fallen themselves, but being overall calm is probably the safest bet. Winter Fairy has come in to say you're curious. Ooh, now you're curious. The wear makes you cautious, but the daemons make you curious. Winter Fairy, oh my. All right then, I guess curious we will go. One of the thrall's eyes suddenly turn from watery gray to shiny black, like a smooth stone found at the bottom of a pond. The fallen grins at you, an expression so sharp, so present, that it causes a jolt of energy to run through you. The daemon has taken notice of you. You wait with bated breath, but there is no further sign. The black fades into gray. The thrall's intensity loosens again into the soft habitual expression that haunts the faces of the fallen. From then on, though, you lose the chariot some ways off Beaker Street. It appears to be crisscrossing with your path, as if herding you. The fallen, in its retinue, lumber through the crowded streets, forcing you to stay close in the chariot's wake. Whichever way you turn, you're caught up among the thralls, or skirting the vehicle's wheels. The botheration of it is you're headed towards the east gate yourself. You had intended to see the new milliner's shop in that part of town, although suddenly that seems much less important by comparison than whatever is happening now. Continuing alongside the chariot takes you closer to the wilds, past the milliner. At the city's edge, you stop and evaluate. Here, there are no crowds, just you and the silent equipage. This is a chance to find out more about what is going on in Prosper, about the Damons, and perhaps about yourself. And after all, there are no rules against following Damons or of being seen by them. That much protects you. A presentiment grips you. It is vital that you see where this Damon goes and what he does, here at the edge of town. Not seizing the chance to investigate the Damon seems improbable beyond belief. But why? Are we curious about the Damons? Do we want to gain information to use against the Damons, or do we want to save our town? Though when it became our town, I do not know. Bold Winter Fairy, you want to gain information to use against the Damons. Well, here we go. It stands to reason that there may be many secrets hidden here that you can use. If this Damon will allow you to follow him, then it would be foolish not to take the chance to gather information. After all, the oft-stage adage is true. Knowledge is power. And you do not intend to let the Damons have a hair's more power to use against you than is necessary. You turn your steps towards the east, heading out of town. You keep a steady pace, methodically swerving behind the carriages and trees to avoid being seen. Once out on the open road, your only recourse is to affect a casual air. It is your right to take a stroll along these roads, after all. You need not explain your journey's intent to any person. As soon as the chariot rolls past the town limits, the vehicle stops. There is a shuddering motion as the weight is shifted inside. Then the Damon Lord himself descends from his chariot and steps onto the dirt road. You stop, too, stark against the blue sky. But your mind is caught up in the oddness of this. There is something strange in this. How do you figure out what it is? Do we observe keenly? Do we feel into the Damon's intentions? Or are we at least as tricky as the Damon and two can play that game? Ooh, spicy. Now, our empathy is fairly high. Our intelligence, however, is lower. Not terrible, but lower. So feeling will go better than watching in this instance. Just the way that things work here, Winter Fairy. So as much as you want to observe keenly, it might be better to feel into it, just because we have skill in that. Winter Fairy wants to observe. We'll observe and see where it gets us. You try to focus, but nothing comes to mind. Your thoughts are cut short by the sudden chill of someone's eyes upon you. The Damon has turned and is looking at you, dark eyes glittering, and you freeze in the intensity of his gaze. We are caught. Why, this is unexpected, the Damon says dryly. It is not often that one such as I boasts the honor of entertaining one such as you. Allow me to present myself in the absence of a common acquaintance. You may call me Malachite, he pronounces with a flourish. And whom do I have the honor of addressing? I am Dominique Montague, you say hastily. Interesting. Montague's heir. Is it so? Well, well, you've quite caught my curiosity. Can I assist you in some way, or do you prefer to deal with the woodkin? Somehow he managed to make this epithet for the Weirs into a derogatory slur. Your thoughts race. A great many questions have arisen just from this last statement. How did this daemon know your guardian? Did he ever have dealings with them? And if so, what kind? Or perhaps Malachite is just trying to get a rise out of you by dropping bits of information calculated to spark your interest. But perhaps this daemon is far more well informed than you had thought they generally were about an individual's doings, for that mention of the Weirs was extremely pointed. And then there is the matter of the offer of help. Such a phrase cannot be mere politeness, it is weighted with magical import. This is a proposal, no less, of opening a certain door of communication and exchange. The question is it a door you wish to go through? Daemons are tricky without a doubt. Accepting a favor from this one, whatever his motives may be, will open you up to being daemon held, influenced. For a favor from this sort always entails obligation. However, daemons have indisputable power that is wholly different from anything humans could manufacture. With a daemon's aid, you could rise far above your station in society, achieve in moments the sort of rank it could take years to cement on your own. You could gain knowledge far beyond human compass. If you are wise, perhaps you will ask for nothing or gain more information first. The daemon's look, however, is intent. He will like you more, you sense, if you agree from the first or refuse altogether. What will it be? Do we ask for help, refuse politely, sense what is really going on and redirect the conversation, or redirect the conversation by asking a pointed question? I would suggest number 3, personally. We have that empathy. We do not have the intelligence for the fourth one, as we have learned from our mistake earlier. So recently earlier. Asking for help is, uh, I mean, we would get help. What it would cost us is a whole nother matter. Refusing politely would also, again, um, make him like us more. 2 or 3, Winter Fairy. 3 it is. You dig down into your gut and listen there for a moment. 2 things become clear. First, that Malachite is on tenterhooks about something. The second is that he is mildly afraid of you and wishes to make you an ally. Ooh, spicy. Thoughts circle around as you attempt to make sense of this. The only reason for Malachite to be afraid of you, who possess no superior magical talent or exhaustive resources, is surely the insight you have acquired regarding the activities of his thralls. It's nothing that I need, but perhaps there is something you seek to gain, you say. After all, it is not every day that Malachite, lord over many fallen, chooses to speak to a mere townsperson. I am sure that there is something more you wish from me. This seems to startle Malachite, and his thin face quirks in a sharp grin. Indeed, this is turning into an interesting day. My word, a most interesting day indeed. You sense, however, that his heart is racing, if daemons have hearts. You smile in return. So it is. Malachite appears to have made up his mind. In a sound that raises the hair on the back of your neck, he chuckles. You are most welcome to call upon me later, if you dare, Malachite says. It is so rare that I am treated to such distinguished a company, and I should very much like to show you our world. Do you accept the offer of calling upon Malachite, in earnest or for politeness' sake? So, do we accept with no intention of going? Do we accept in earnest because it could be interesting? Do we accept eagerly to learn more about daemons? Do we refuse outright, or do we run away without speaking? Which I don't believe is the correct answer. Um, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Not that I want to pick 5. Um, I don't think eagerly should be a good idea. Like being eager with Malachite is a dangerous prospect. Earnest, less so. Accepting without any intention of going could be disastrous. Refusing outright would would be definitive, of course, but we won't learn anything if we refuse outright, and running away without speaking is cowardly. So I'm going to go with 2 because that seems to be what the consensus is. I thank you. That would be very interesting, you say. There is no need to feign your enthusiasm, for how many chances is one given to enter this non human world as a guest rather than as a prisoner? I should be delighted to call upon you. Upon returning home, you head upstairs to consider what you have witnessed and to ponder its meaning. If nothing else, those brief moments of conversation have given you a better apprehension of the daemons and their world. It is a thing wholly different to the cool entanglement of the wood, or the manners and bustle of town. The daemons have rules that are all their own, it is clear. However difficult they may be for the human mind to comprehend, there is a logic there, however strange. Oof, we have learned things. Let's see here. Our relationships, the Damons, have gone up slightly once more. It went down a bit because we were confronted by thralls, but now it's gone up again. Ooh, um, very spicy indeed. A high, thin chime rings out, startling you in your work. It takes a moment to calm your breath, to realize that this time the disturbance is nothing preternatural, simply the door below. The sound of Bruno opening the door reaches your ears. He says something, and a lady's voice responds in a low murmur. You can't quite make out who it is. You brush off your reverie and descend quietly, in case it is someone you do not wish to see. Bruno meets you in the hallways. Miss Scufford is here, Bruno says, eyeing you curiously. I put her in the drawing room. Oh, Miss Scufford. Oh, hey, Dragon. Welcome, welcome. Um, we are reading Weyrwood, a choose your own adventure story from Choice of Games. So I'm glad you could pop in and enjoy the story. Um, I will not go over what we have gone over. We are in chapter 7 at the moment, so quite a bit of things have happened. Um, but we have a choice to make. How do we wish to respond to Miss Danae Gufford visiting? Do we not wish to see her, even though we are quite fond of her already? Are we eager to see her because, again, we are quite fond of her already? Or do we wonder what she wants because she's never called upon us before? What do we think, audience? 1, 2, or 3? Ah, Winter Fairy. Being eager to see her is always a great thing. Ah, Dragon. Dragon is also fond of her and has not even met her yet. By all means, you exclaim, and hurry to greet her. As you pass Bruno, you catch a glimpse of his amused face. Ah, Bruno. He's our stalwart servant. Danae's cheeks go pink as you enter, and she rises hastily from the seat by the window. Messere Montague, she says. This is a pleasant surprise, you say, and gesture for her to sit again. Danae makes a remark so inane you cannot hold it in your head. She seems troubled, her gaze moving around the imported oak and weave furnishings, which, truth be told, are a trifle dustier than you would like. You go through the necessary niceties for about a quarter of an hour, but it is soon evident this is more than just a simple social visit. Danae has a particular purpose in coming here today. Do we ask her outright what is bothering her? Do we commiserate with her? Or do we allude to a deeper meaning and let her respond? Aw, Dragon, I'm glad that you are here then. Um, we have commiserated with her in a previous chapter, and that seemed to go over well, I will mention. But any of the answers will, of course, direct the conversation. Dragon says 1. Do we have a consensus? Winter Fairy says 2. I feel like 2 is the way to go. Commiserating with her, again, has worked out for us in the past, and she's very sweet. So this might draw her out more comfortably than just asking her outright what is bothering her. Miss Cufford, pray forgive me, but you seem agitated. Is everything all right? She appears moved with honest compassion. Danae bites her lip and draws a deep breath before speaking again. In truth, there is something particular I wish to ask you about, if I may. Your silence is invitation enough. She looks around, presses her lips together, and continues. I would like your advice on a particular matter. It is a matter of utmost discretion. We can respond very forthright with, let's hear it then. We can respond more endearingly, you can depend upon my silence, or we can respond more cautiously as, are you certain I'm the person you wish to ask then? Personally, I would not recommend 3. We are very sweet and well thought of by Miss Danae. 2 is my preference as well. Winter Fairy, do we have a consensus? Feel free to weigh in, Dragon. There's no true wrong answer here. You can depend upon my silence. She smiles. Thank you. She glances around and edges closer. My father, she stops, wishes to engage me to a man I do not wish to marry. In fact, I am already engaged. I could not prevent it from happening. It came altogether so quickly and without my knowledge, but she stops. I am sorry. I'm not explaining it well at all. I have just found out that this is intended, and in truth, I do not know what to do. No worries, Dragon. Participation is optional always. Um, I'm just happy to have you here and participating. And you do not wish to marry this person, you repeat, seeking to understand the nuance of the situation. She shakes her head vehemently. I do not love him. I hate him. I cannot stand the sight of him. But it is complicated due to family politics. So I must ask for your help. Perhaps if you would speak to my father and explain that which it is not wholly proper for me to explain, I should be forever grateful. An outdated custom. You consider for a moment the implications of her words. What what do you most need to know? Do we need to know who she is engaged to? Why this has been kept a secret, or absolutely nothing more? We're just in for a penny, in for a pound. The dragon thinks that knowing who she's engaged to might help us understand the situation. Personally, I think it might be the very horrible Ed Vane, but it could be someone we don't know. So I think asking this is prudent. All the spicy details. Yes, indeed, Dragon, all the spicy details. To whom are you in promise? Her face grows still, and this is more alarming than any tears would be. It is clear that a colossal struggle is happening beneath the surface. It is a associate of my father's, a Mr. Tunbridge. She closes her eyes for a moment, as if overwhelmed by all of it. I cannot say anything strong enough that will convince you of his unsuitability for me. He is generally well respected among certain circles in the city, not among genteel circles, to be sure. I have met him not above 4 or 5 times, and he. Her voice grows ragged, and she buries her face in her hands for a moment. Then she sits up again and looks outwardly more composed, though the intensity of her words belies her careful expression. I have no evidence, but I do believe him to be vicious in a certain way, but I cannot say how. One cannot slander a man for a certain aspect in their eyes, a certain coldness and cruelty in his behavior towards his servants and those lacking his respect. I cannot say anything at all, for there is no proof. There is no proof, just a feeling that I cannot marry him. She exhales deeply and meets your gaze again. Please say that you will help me? Oh no, Winter Fairy, you have an occupied lap. I cannot help you at all. I am miles away, but I wish you luck in your endeavor to endure having your lap taken. You consider for a moment the implication of her words. What do you most need to know? So we can now ask for even more information. Yep, yep. Winter Fairy baby law says that you can no longer move from your spot, and you must sit here and enjoy your time listening to me while a baby naps in your lap for however long that will take. Good luck. God. May the gods favor you, and may luck be on your side. So we can ask about why this is being kept a secret, or we can ask nothing more. And I think we should ask more information. Obviously, we need to know the undercurrent of what is involved if we're going to interfere. Because let's be honest, going to interfere is definitely what we're going to do now. We like her too much. May I ask, why has this not been more generally known? Her face creases as if attempting not to cry, and she actually wrings her hands. It is my father's doing. It all happened so quickly. First, it was threatened. Then I heard not a word about it. So I thought he had discarded his idea. I fought it from the beginning, she says, and now her eyes do fill with tears. But then, just when I could draw breath, he told me he was in negotiations already with the family. Negotiations, as if I were property or a piece of furniture to bargain for. He told me it had been fixed since last year, but when I spoke to him, the contract had only just been drawn, and I didn't dare to oppose him. You must help me. You consider for a moment the implication of her words. What do you most need to know? Nothing more. I mean, there's nothing more to ask. We now know what is going on. You consider what to do. We can offer to elope with her instead as a joke, try to help her disentangle it, reproach her for not taking control of her own life, or politely decline to interfere. Let's be honest. Nobody in my chat wants to choose number four. This is not a joking manner, obviously. I will not even accept a vote of number one. So it is number two and number three. Are we helpful or are we reproachful? To which I will say our character has been up to this point helpful. And Winter Fairy, of course, agrees because she was there for it. Well, here's the thing, though, Dragon. I will show you. We have some relationships here. Um, the options are Mr. Wren, which is her cousin, Miss Danae, which you can see we already have a decent relationship with, or Alcindor Wakeforth, which we have also been decent to and have a good relationship with. Those are kind of this point um, our romantic options. Hippolyta is our best friend. We have already missed the window on that one. And Yocasta is our rival, although I suppose if we got our relationship up with her, we might have turned that around, but I don't like her, so we're not doing that. But I'm just saying the opportunity here to be mean to Danae is not something we should take, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with number two. But yes, personally, eloping with her as a joke would appeal to your sense of humor. I will do everything in my power to help you resolve this, you say. It will take some care and planning, but there must be a way to free her from this antiquated practice. She smiles at you, eyes squeezed shut in evident relief. Thank you. You are very good. It is as though a dark cloud has been lifted from you both. However much good your help will effect, she, evidently, seems to feel much better knowing that you are on her side. You slip into easy conversation and spend a very pleasant half hour discussing the various habits peculiar to Prosper that Danae found diverting upon first arriving. Indeed, now that you are better acquainted with each other, it is quite easy to talk to her. When she leaves, it is with real regret, because we do like her. We do like her very much indeed. Danae Gufford's visit, such as it was, has led you to thinking. If you are to succeed at all in society, you must host some event here at home rather than just constantly visiting others' events. And if the other gentry know something about the daemon's bizarre behavior, only special circumstances could induce them to reveal it. It need not be an elaborate affair, but something that will be diverting, and gather your potential friends and allies, and perhaps some enemies, together in one place. A small gathering will be just the thing, but there is one thing. How is quite another. This event must show off your best skills and accomplishments, as well as make you shine as host. First of all, you must decide whom you will invite. Certainly at least one or two of the council members. It is only appropriate, after all. But who else? Do we invite the philosophers and intellectual elite of Prosper? Do we invite the most popular members of the assembly set? Or do we invite the most artistic persons in Prosper? Now, we and our skill set are charming. So playing the charming host to the most popular members of the assembly set is likely our best bet in this situation, but any of the three could be valid opportunities. So, we have met Mr. Wren Gufford of the Philosophers and the intellectual elite of Prosper. He's still fairly neutral in his relationship with us, but we could, considering we need to, or we are attempting to help his cousin, get him and his people on our side. The most popular members, of course, will be the ones that are the most helpful in general, especially with us being so charming and empathetic. And then inviting the most artistic persons in Prosper is more empathy. We don't have any personal skill in art, but influencing them could influence other things, though I'm not sure quite as much. It would also bring Alcindor to our door, who we have been delighted by and been curious of in earlier chapters. That's the rundown. What's the vote? How shall we proceed in our plans for a party? Three. Ooh, Winter Fairy has been interested in Alcindor, I see. Let's go. Let's do it. Absolutely. Alcindor Wakeforth is, of course, the first thing that springs to mind. But among the theater set, you know several other persons of distinguished taste and eccentric mien. You dash off invitations to the appropriate persons. How are you feeling about the party? Are we excited to show off our skills? Resigned to the whole affair? Keen, having a keen anticipation to have company over, or neutral, as it is our duty? 1 and 3 are my vote personally, but any of the above really applies to us. So far, our personality has been kind of across the board in our decisions, because chat is chat. So, what shall we be? Excited, resigned, keen, or neutral? 1, 2, 3, or 4. You let me know. Three again. Keen anticipation. I like your style, Winter Fairy. I like it a lot. Whatever else you accomplish, this event will certainly make everyone, at least, pretend to be conciliatory. You spend some days dusting and making preparations with Bruno for company. The house is in passable condition, but it still has a forlorn air. It will be the first airing since the funeral, Bruno says mournfully. You were not there. The thought settles at the back of your head for some time before you shake it off. You will need some help. At your guardians' parties, there was a whole house of staff to assist. Now you have only Bruno, and with affairs as they are, it is too short a time to engage new servants by yourself. You need someone's expert opinion, or perhaps the loan of their trusted household help. But hiring will cost spina. How many servants will you hire? We have 12 spina total. So we could do 2 servants for 3, which is the bare minimum of servants. We could do 4 servants and a cook for 8, which is leaving us very little. We could do 2 servants and a cook for 5, or no servants and we'll just do everything ourselves as the host, which would be overwhelming. For this, my recommendation is to not go all out with 8, because that would leave us with 4 spina left of our 12, and that is so much not enough. For 5, however, which is a little less than half, we'll still have less than when we arrived, more than what we otherwise would have. Or we could do just 3 and be a little pressed, even with the extra hands. Winter Fairy says 1. She wants to be cautious, but not overly so. Is that the consensus today? We will have 2 servants and hope for the best. A meager attempt, but if everything else is right, nobody notices the help anyway. You will have to do a great deal yourself, but that is the price of saving Spina. Now that the staff is acquired, the question of the decorations, the mood, and most importantly, the activities that the guests can experience is at hand. What sort of party will we have? Will we have an outdoor affair, active, but we did invite artists, so I don't recommend this one. Do we have a genteel dinner party, or do we have a musical soiree? In this, I'm going to say that genteel dinner party or a musical soiree will suit best, but we did invite the artists, which means a musical soiree is probably more up their alley and they will enjoy it more, which will mean that our light staffing will be less noticeable because they will have less to set about. So I'm going to go with number 3 as the consensus here because a musical soiree for the artists seems the right way to go. Where there is music, you cannot go wrong. It will make everyone relax and hold you in higher esteem. You have a great deal to do. If you are sufficiently accomplished, you may provide the music yourself. Otherwise, it would be wiser to engage professional recitalists. There are 1 or 2 whose names you've heard in town, but to really make an impression, you could use your contacts in the city to bring someone completely new. So we could provide the music, though that is not our forte. We could hire musicians from town for 4 spina, which we can still afford, or you could invite a recitalist from the city for 8 spina, which I do not believe we can even afford. Let's check. Nope, we could afford it and have 1 spina left and be very, very bad. I think we should hire musicians from town, primarily so that we don't have to do the music ourselves, but we still can have a respectable amount of music. Whew. And still have a little bit of speed. Okay. There are certain suitable musicians in town. They are not of the highest quality compared with city gatherings, but good enough for an evening such as this. The preparations take you a good part of the day, but when you are through, the house is ready. Now everything is arranged. You step back and admire your handiwork. They arrive. Whew. It's a good thing we didn't waste all of our spina right off the bat with servants. The first guests arrive. The bohemian set of Prosper rolls up to your door in carriages and dog carts, bedecked in bright colors, shocking combinations of feathers and brocade and hyperbole. This is not quite the beau monde, more the seedy edge of the theatre-going crowd, those admissible to assemblies, but not quite favored to call upon the likes of Lady Eugene, your guardian, if they could see the house. They likely would have raised an eyebrow at such company. But they are here. They bring laughter and color into the empty place, and that is something. Welcome back, Trav. Yes, you have missed things. We'll fill you in as we go. Currently, we are throwing a party to help Miss Danae Gufford out with the unfortunateness of her arranged engagement. You greet them and send them into the drawing room to begin with. Once everyone has arrived, you repair to the dining room, where refreshments are laid out. Quite a transformation has been wrought on the dusty furnishings. The room now speaks of grandeur and elegance rather than sorrow and neglect. The subject on many people's lips, now that everyone has arrived and comfortably engaged in conversation, is the fate of Melantho Ferrier. You catch edges of the news as you pass through the room. Disappeared, the whole Ferrier house in disarray, from what I hear, though, of course, I have not been there myself, since the whole family is so far on the way to being marked. I heard that the misguided creature attempted to revive one of the fallen. Rode all the way to 9 Mile in a dog cart with the former member of our company in tow, just to see if the enchantment wore off by distance. It seems that, whatever else her endeavors, Miss Ferrier has not left off her rebellious ways. You think again of that green-tinted, glassy stare and shudder. To be marked, shunned by polite society is not a fate to be wished upon anyone. What will you do? Do we start the musical entertainment? Ask about the Damon activities? Talk about our proposal to change the gentry's treatment of the marked, or be sociable with our guests? I believe we have the option to do a couple of these things, but not all of them over the course of our party. Um, Starting the musical entertainment now will definitely appeal to the artistic minded of the bunch. Asking about the daemon activities that we have an interest in um, is perhaps a dangerous conversation to start the party off. Talking about our proposal to change the gentry's treatment of the marked is definitely on our list of things to accomplish regardless, because we have been put to task on the matter by Lady Eugene, and being sociable with our guests is probably something that we should do. So, one, two, three, or four, let us know what our thoughts are. Well, uh, as you wish, Trav, but I agree with Winter Fairy that four is probably the best way to start out our party. You walk around and greet your guests, dipping in and out of conversations. Where you walk, jovial conversation and laughter follow. You're pleased to give cheer where you can, and you are genuinely delighted to see your guests enjoying themselves. This is a gathering worthy of your guardian's house. So, what shall we do next? Um, Personally, I think talking about our proposal now that we have been sociable should be next on the list. But starting the musical entertainment is something that we should also get to. Winter Fairy says one. Um, do we have a consensus? One or three, I see. Trav, you may have to pop in an opinion regardless. It's a pretty straightforward choice, to be honest. We have a couple of interests and some entertainment. Okay, one it is. We're going to start the musical entertainment. The town musicians play a passable set of sonatas to your guests' general enjoyment. It is not new repertoire for them, of course, for these musicians often play in town, but it is good music and you find yourself quite relaxing. Hippolyta accosts you at the sideboard. You are acting very strange this evening, she hisses to you under her breath. Is something wrong? Typical of her, this blend of kindness and absolute disregard for the rules governing polite communication. You meet her gaze. She won't accept a weak reply, it seems, but this is already a fraught social situation, not at all the place to air your suspicions. How do we respond? Do we demur, invent something innoxious that won't harm our reputation, convince her that we are behaving normally, or, well, we cannot actually confide in her, which, because our relationship has become not high enough to do so. Um, the proposal, in essence, Trav, is that we have proposed the city hall gathering earlier in an earlier chapter that we would like to change the way the marked are treated by setting up a charity. So, um, Lady Eugene has told us that we are in charge of this project, and she has a very a very high relationship with us at this point in time. So we do not want to disappoint her. But it is only one of the things on our list of things to do. Honestly, the best point in here would be to confide in her, but we do not have the option. So, 1 through 3, everyone. How shall we deal with our friend who have been on the outs of recently? I do not believe convincing her that we are behaving normal is a good idea. Essentially, Trav, yes. All enough rope to hang ourselves with, but she is interested in encouraging it regardless. I believe, were there when she said that she does feel badly about the marked and how they are treated, but she, in her opinion, was that she didn't want to get involved. However, with this charity project, she will back us if we go about it the right way. So we do need the support of the town on this one if we can get it. But dealing with Hippolyta, back to our original point, how do we deal with our friend who is not exactly happy with us right now? Not exactly unhappy with us, but not exactly happy with us. Um, I think I'm going to demur unless someone else decides otherwise, because I don't think the other two are going to do us any good. She knows us too well. This is not really the time, you say, but your voice is harsher than you intended. Hippolyta draws back as if stung. Well, far be it for me to impose when it is clear you have all within your own capable hands, she says. I wished only to offer my help if needed. She turns and stalks off before you can apologize, seemingly genuinely offended, but at least your secret suspicions are safe. You run into your solicitor in the press of the crowd. Mr. Hallwood, so good of you to come, you explain. Oh dear. He greets you with a solemn nod. His already melancholic disposition seems to be turning even more and more towards the morose. It is good to see this place alive, he comments. He looks around and lowers his already quiet voice even further. I spoke with Mr. Gufford. He indicated to me that you may be pursuing some sort of alternative scheme. Before you answer, Roland Gufford himself appears from behind Hallwood. He claps you on the shoulder. That's right, old chap, leave it to me. He winks and you suppress an involuntary shudder. No, I'm afraid you are mistaken, you say. I never agreed to such a scheme, though it was interesting to hear about. Gufford's eyes go sideways and he looks acutely uncomfortable. Well, he says nervously. Hallwood smiles, seemingly relieved. Very well, that is good to know. We shall continue to work towards your goal to the utmost of our abilities, with your cooperation. I thank you. He gives a slight bow. You return to see to your other guests. It seems your moment with the broker has been observed. When you turn around, Wren Gufford is observing you keenly. How do we react to Mr. Wen Gufford, whose magic has been very dangerous and whose philosophy club we have yet to even see the light of day of? Do we pretend nothing happened? Do we confide in Mr. Wren? Or do we deflect Wren's curiosity with charm and wit? Winter Fairy says that we should deflect. We do not, as I recall, trust Mr. Wren at all. So I'm going to agree, because he's kind of a wild card. You raise your glass. Wren's curious gaze pulls you over. What was that? He asks forthrightly. I couldn't help but overhear. Nothing of any consequence, I should think, you say brightly, but Wren's brows furrow. He is unconvinced. If you insist, he responds. You nod, and are left in an awkward silence. It is clear that you wish to conceal the subject of your recent discussion, and equally clear that you feel uncomfortable. After a few moments, Wren excuses himself coolly. It seems you will not be the best of friends after this. Moreover, there cannot be a doubt that you are considering something slightly scandalous. What will you do? This may, in fact, be the last opportunity to decide between asking about the Damon activities, because we know that they're up to some shady, shady stuff, or to pursue our proposal and try to win more favor in the town towards it. Um, there's no three in this instance, it's just one or two. I'm glad you caught that, Winter Fairy. I agree. I think we should pursue this first. The Damon activities are more difficult. You find the cats and engage in them in cheerful conversation. Once you have accepted their compliments on your hospitality and extend your own, there is an opening to turn the talk back to your proposal. What do we ask? Do we ask for assistance in the work, help persuading the mayor, or ask relying on my influence? Assistant, the mayor, or funds? We have spent a great deal on this party. Asking for funds towards a charitable effort would be very helpful, considering we don't have a lot of our own. Helping to persuade the mayor would also be helpful. Asking for assistance in letting them decide what that assistance might mean is the safest option. Winter Fairy suggests 3. What is our influence? Shall we look? Our influence. It's slightly better than neutral, and we are pretty respectable, not extremely so. This may or may not work, but we do have good charisma. I think asking for assistance in the work is probably our safest bet here. Pure charisma will push through what our influence cannot. Have you given any thought to my proposal? You asked those around you at large. I am impatient to begin work, but I have need of assistance. I know that I have been charged with assembling a team to enact the scheme. Heads nod. Some council members look uncomfortable, but one or two appear to be keenly interested in your words. Mr. Gray, a very upright-looking person, nods in recognition. Astoundingly well done. I support your scheme entirely, they say. I too believe that we have been laboring under the old system for far too long. You bow courteously. I thank you. It shall take some help to carry out. I am looking for assistance. You may count on my aid, they say, and you both beam. Once the first volunteer has been found, it is a short time before more people offer their help. Before long, you have a tidy group of assistants assembled. As your guests depart, you scrutinize their faces carefully for signs of the evening's success. A successful event is one that will leave them talking for days and even weeks to come, and will elevate you and render you more respectable in the eyes of society. You can hear some of them enthusing about your hospitality. You receive several compliments and earnest desires to call upon you. This was not the event of the year, of course, but you did very well for yourself, and can be rest assured that your reputation has been bolstered in society. The house has weathered the party fairly well. There are certain drink stains on the tablecloths and spilled pastries here and there, but no principal damage, which seems a mark of success. The tables and chairs must be put to rights, however. Hippolyta is one of the last guests to leave. She touches one of the misplaced tables and levels you with a pointed glance. Thank you, Dominique. I enjoyed that. You cannot tell if her tone is mocking or genuine. Would you like some help? She says. It is difficult when one is alone to put a place to rights. Is there some deeper meaning in her words? Um, Remember, we have somewhat slighted her twice. She's not very happy with us, but are we warmed by her offer? Is she just being kind? Are you repulsed by the implication of her words, or do you not know what to think? Personally, I think we should be warmed by her offer that she's still our friend. That I think will go over the best, seeing as we did not confide in her earlier, mainly because we didn't have the choice to. But yes, let's be friends again. What about Francis? You ask. Will he not wonder where you are? Hippolyta's eyes widen. She suppresses a smile. You get the sense that she is barely restraining herself from throwing her head back and laughing at your naive question. Ah, my dear, perhaps you did not know. I forget that we are quite notorious in this region, but you have been away. No, we have a very good understanding about these things with each other. I love him dearly. You have not to fear. And to make of this speech, what to make of this speech, and moreover, what to do. So, do we want the help? Do we wish her company more than the help? Do we want to be alone, or do we not want her company? I do not recommend either 3 or 4. Um, Personally, we only have 3 servants, Bruno included, and ourselves to put things to right. So her help might actually be helpful. Um, but definitely the company more than the help because we have been not right with our best friend and 1 or 2. Um, Trav already says 2. Winter Fairy, do you agree or what is the consensus? Indeed. I think Trav is right. Asking for her company more than the help. I think she'll help anyways, but asking for her company will help us along with the fact that we have ruined our relationship a little bit recently. So I want her company more than the help. Thank you. You are most welcome to stay as long as you please, you say. It is good to see you. You and Hippolyta work together to clear away the furniture and put the place to rights. Perhaps it is your imagination, but sometimes her eyes linger upon you, and sometimes she brushes too close for politeness. Her skin is warm. How do we respond? Do we respond lovingly because she is our dear friend and perhaps we wish she were something more? Do we draw back, concerned, considering she is already married and we are not? Or do we draw the line at friendship? Winter Fairy, how spicy should we get? Trav is in favor of going all in and being a little bit scandalous. I'm in favor of going all in as well, to be quite honest. So I think we will leave Winter Fairies. Well, what about Danae? Indeed. Um, Relationships are complicated. Are we so sweet on Danae that we cannot consider anyone else? And she has asked for us to help her out with her not so welcome engagement, but we will get Danae either. Um, I'm going to go with one. Danae is miserable in her current situation, which is why she came to ask us for her help. It was not on necessarily the understanding that we would replace said engagement proposal with one from our own. She just asked us, her newfound friend, for help. So, as much as we are quite fond of Danae, that does not necessarily mean that we are ready to jump in full running. We've also been encountering Alcindor Wakeworth as well in an attempt to be friendly towards them. So we have our eye on a few people. Um, Clearly, we have said no to Mr. Wren, her cousin, Danae's cousin, because he is probably a problem. But this is a friend that we've had since childhood that we've known very well and who we have been perhaps not all in with, and our relationship has suffered for it. So we could be all in now and see what happens. I'm all for spiciness, honestly. I think that's the fun part. And seeing as this is in a style very similar to Jane Austen's novels, I don't think it'll get super spicy. So let's see what happens. You catch her gaze and smile in return, willing to play along. There is a special light in her eyes, a golden thread that wraps you close together and kindles a warmth behind your breastbone. She keeps looking at you intently, with less and less playfulness each time, as if she expects you to do something. And indeed, you can see her longing as if it were imprinted upon her brow. It is in the length of her gazes and the tenderness with which she speaks your name. Do we make the first move? Are we polite? Do we jump in feet first, or do we go, no, perhaps not? I think we should be polite about it. Let's at least set some boundaries or understand the boundaries of what this is and ask. I'm going to do that because that seems like the best idea. She pauses for a moment as if considering. Her eyes are sad, her smile brittle. Not tonight, I'm afraid, she murmurs. The closeness that held you two grows cold, and she departs soon afterwards. After all the company has left, the house is very quiet. Somewhere you can sense Bruno moving about, doing his customary nighttime lockup. You are alone. You have reached the limits of sense, and you think as you drift off to sleep. The time has come to decide what you really believe. And we are at the chapter's end. So this has been a little bit longer than I have played the last couple of days. We've gotten through 3 chapters. Though, to be fair, I believe chapter 6 was pretty short. So I'm going to leave it here today. As my voice is starting to go, we will pick up tomorrow with chapter 8, the Charter, to see what happens next. To that end, to sum up, we are quite charismatic, but not terribly all that intelligent, but not unintelligent either. We are delicate more than bold, empathetic. We are more into a subterfuge than principles, but still they're fairly neutral. Our health is still at a healthy 98. Our accomplished is only a low 63 out of 100, but more accomplished than not. And we're very neutral. We don't do the sports thing, apparently. We're more respectable than scandalous. We have a bit of influence, though we've used a bit of it as well. We're neutral and dangerous. Our woodbound and weird sense is still fairly neutral, though we are more woodbound than weird sensed. Philanthropy has been growing, so we do side with the philanthropists. As far as our relationships go, we are still neutral the Weirs, but we are getting slightly less than neutral with the Damons. Hippolyta's quite neutral with us now, which is unfortunate considering she's our childhood friend. Colonel Aix is absolutely neutral, but Lady Eugene does appreciate us a bit. Uh, Ren has become even more neutral than he was before, but Danae likes us quite a bit. Alcindor Wakeforth is also rather agreeable to us, and Yocasta is, well, she still hates us, and we still hate her. We only have 5 Spina left, which is less than we had when we started this whole affair, but we did have a very successful party, which is why we spent money in the first place. So that is how we are right now. And this is the end of the stream. We will pick back up tomorrow at 1, the way I do every day, Monday through Friday, and I can't wait to continue this intriguing story. So take care, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.